In this tutorial, we're going to look at the Insert Edge Loop tool, which is just a way to add more geometry or more segments, more sections to an object. So just to note that we've looked at this in another tutorial on one of the MayaBasics, but what we can do is go into the input and we can actually add subdivisions here by adding to the width and height and depth, or whichever type of object you're working on will be different. Now I think that although we can do that, if you're not quite sure about what you're modeling, this isn't always a good way to do it, because we may end up just having to delete edges afterwards or get rid of edges. So unless you have a definite idea of how many edges you need to start with, or how many subdivisions you need to start with, I should say, then this isn't always the best way. We can always add subdivisions after the fact when we need them. And that's an important thing to think about for in modeling for games. We only want to add subdivisions and detail where we actually need the detail, not anywhere else. So having said that, I'm going to go to the tool. So under Mesh Tools, making sure we're in our modeling submenu. The Mesh Tools, we have the Insert Edge Loop tool. I'm going to go into click into the settings, just make sure I reset this, and I'll look at these settings in a bit. Let's grab this tool. Okay. So when you first use it, we do have this tooltip, click drag and edge. And all we need to do is just click in here. Okay. And then with the left mouse button pressed down, we can just move our mouse around, still with the left button clicked. And whenever we're happy, wherever we want to place a cut, we can just click off the mouse. And we can just repeat this process. So I can go in and I can start adding geometry wherever I want that geometry, which is really handy. So that's the essence of the Insert Edge Loop tool. Okay, you can do that, and then we can, if we need to, we can move any of these around wherever we want to move them afterwards. But just to create those subdivisions, to create that extra geometry for modeling purposes, it's a really quick way to do that. Pretty simple. I'm going to do these. Other options within here. If I want to add more than one subdivision at once, one edge loop, I go into the Mesh Tools and do what I did at the start. This time, instead of clicking on Insert Edge Loop, I'm going to click on the Settings box at the side. So under here, we have this multiple edge loops. Click on this, and then I'll leave it at 2 for now. Make sure that's clicked on. And then when I click on this, that's going to create 2 cuts through, and they're going to be equally positioned through there as well. Okay. So that's a really useful way of getting more than one subdivision added, more than one edge loop at once. Otherwise, what we're doing is we're clicking and dragging down these one by one, and then we have to get them equally spaced apart. So it's a much quicker way of doing it. Just be aware that if I was to come out of this tool, okay, if I go back into this tool now to use it as we did with the first instance of just clicking and dragging our edges, so I do it on this one, it's going to actually insert multiple edge loops because of the settings we changed. So just be aware of that. I need to go back. I need to go into the Insert Edge Loop tools, to the settings, and we can either uncheck this and set it back to what it was, or we can just do a reset tool to get that back. Okay. And now we're back on the click and drag. As a side note, if I want to get rid of any of these edges, so if I just double click this edge loop to get the whole thing, if I just do, say, a backspace, it looks like it's got rid of the edge. But if I go into verts now, notice that the vertices points are still there. And this isn't particularly good for us, because what this is doing is creating n-gons. So this is going to end up with some weird shading in the surface. So just be careful about that. So just undo this. What we want to do instead is do a control and backspace. So if I do control and backspace, that gets rid of the edge, and it also gets rid of the vertices points as well. Okay, so let's do this with this one. Grab this, do this. So I'm just shift double clicking, control backspace, then we're back where we were. So here, just to illustrate some of the other features, I've just got a different shape. So just looking at this, so by default, I've just taken it out of multiple edge loops. By default, this is set at relative distance from edge. If I look at the difference between this when I'm just dragging this out, notice how it tries to keep the distance equally on all of these edges. So this one, this one, this one. Look at the distance from the top to where I'm cutting through. Tries to keep that equally spaced. Okay. If I use equal distance from edge, then notice the difference there. So what we're doing now is notice the difference between this and this, but we haven't got the distance between this and this. So it's kind of like it's averaging out the distance. So you may find that, so I say by default we have relative distance from edge. Just do this. Which gives you a different effect completely. Okay, so just be aware of that. Another thing we can do with this is this autocomplete option. So by default, autocomplete's on, so whenever I click to do an edge loop, it goes through the entire surface of the model. There are occasions when you don't want that to happen. We just want it to stop, or the edge loop to terminate at a certain point. So if I click the autocomplete off, then what I can do is just go through and I'm just shift clicking on the edges. And as I do that, it's only going to put the cut through the edge itself. So wherever I'm kind of clicking on the edge, it's just readjusting the edge loop itself. So if I want to stop here and terminate, I can do that, and I can just press enter to set that in stone, and that will do that. Okay. Now obviously this is creating an angle on here, which we may not want. So again, that's just something to be aware of. Yeah, I can still do that because if I double click on this, then it will do a cut through the entire thing. If I switch this autocomplete on, then it's doing that anyway. So that's in those situations where you don't want the edge loop to go through the entire surface of the object. And just the final thing with the edge loop, we have this insert with edge flow. So again, I've just got my defaults relative distance from edge. In fact, I'll just reset this. So if I put a cut through this, it's just going to put a cut straight through wherever I decided to put that. If I use the edge flow, then what Maya's going to do is calculate what it thinks is the best flow for the set of edges. So if you just watch the difference here, so before, let me just click this back off. Okay, it doesn't do anything to the actual shape of our object there. It's just putting the cut through. If I insert with edge flow on this, notice what it does. It tries to round off that corner because it thinks that that should be a rounded edge. Again, it's sort of averaging out the position of this edge based on these angles. So that can be really useful for more organic objects, things like faces. Otherwise, you end up having to go in and just tweak these vertices to get that shape. So that's this insert with edge flow. And that's it for the insert edge loop tool. Really, really useful tool. The best thing to do is play around with it and see what it can do for you.